What's up out there? I have a new build based on a champion. Now, this is more of a proof of concept, kind of like all the other builds that I've worked on this league. But this is proof of concept for a Kinetic Bolt. I did not intend to actually run Kinetic Bolt on this. I started Kinetic Bolt on a Witch Elementalist, I think. What I've been doing this whole league is trying all the different ascendancies out, and I would go pick a skill and try it. So when I was working on the elementalist side, I picked from the different skills that were there, and this one looks like lightning. It is not lightning, but at first glance, I looked at it and I thought, well, this is lightning. I'll probably work with this on the elementalist side, and all will be well. However, this did not work that way. As I learned, as I played through and developed that build, it just didn't quite work out. I've not really revisited the Elementalist build at this point, but I'm going to have to do a different skill choice for that, and I've just not taken the time to do that. So, because this Kinetic Bolt, if we look at the gem itself, it is an attack and a projectile. So I did what I could on the Elementalist side, which we'll talk about here in a second, a little bit further as we go into how this skill scales and how it works and all that. But I tried it out on that because, like I said, I was trying to do more of an elemental skill and found out that this was not. This is an attack, so it's not even a spell. And, you know, you live and learn. You kind of got to play the game to figure some of this stuff out. So that's what I figured out as I played through it. So I thought, okay, I'll try this out on a Ranger. So I gave it a shot on the Ranger side of things. I don't remember which one I tried. Probably a Deadeye, I'm thinking. And I didn't quite get this to land where I wanted to over there either. It just didn't quite pan out the way I wanted. And I took that skill, or took that build as far as I could take it, and then I need to retool it into something else, but I wasn't happy with the way it turned out at all, and I ended up moving on. So we did the, that Necro League that came up. I played in that for a little bit. I got a build started over there. I think I'm still in Act 7 or 8. Wherever I did my videos where I left off, I've just not even bothered playing that ever since, but so I've got that build out there, and then I came back to this game, decided I wanted to play a champion. So we've got a level 71 champion. My goal with this was to try to get an Impale version of something. And I think we got Splitting Steel or something like that. I've tried Splitting Steel, and I didn't get very far with it, and I ended up getting rid of it. But I wanted to do a champion, so I sat down, started off a champion. I did one of the very first skills that you have available is what I tried, like double strike or dual strike. It was one of these two. I don't remember what it was. It might have been dual strike, but it throws like a half moon out in front of you or something like that. I think it was dual strike. It doesn't matter. But I started this off and got up through like Act 3 or something with dual strike. And then at some point I decided I wanted to try out Kinetic Bolt. So I ended up building this around Kinetic Bolt. And I did things a little bit differently with this one. I just loaded this thing up with uniques, played through the campaign to Act like 7 or 8 or something like that. And then I started swapping out the gear that you see here. So this isn't necessarily the best gear, but it's what I started using. And I think I like the armor and energy shield combination for this. That seems to be okay. I am using a unique because that's a better wand than I have otherwise. But this is kind of where this is landed. So from the stats that we're looking at, I have 100% chance to hit and chance to hit evasive, so we're good there. I've focused into this with critical strikes and chance to bleed. And the chance to bleed comes up because of critical strikes, which you'll see when we get into the passive tree. But we have main hand chance to critical hit chance is 40%. I thought that was actually a little bit higher. And then we get a main hand crit multiplier of 220. We have a little bit of a chance to blind from somewhere in the passive tree, I think that it comes from. We also have chance to inflict bleed is at 60%. And that's kind of where we're at. We also have the resistances are basically capped out where they can be. Chance to block attack damage is at 70%, and I get a chance to block spell damage from the passive tree that is totaled out at 65%. So we're going to get a lot of chances to block. As far as skills go, we are running Kinetic Bolt and then Divine Retribution for a retaliation skill. I've also got Mark on hit with Sniper's Mark. I've not really been using vulnerability, and I threw Kinetic Blast in here just to kind of level it up in the background. I want to try Kinetic Blast versus Kinetic Bolt. Kinetic Blast actually tosses out some explosive stuff. It kind of goes off the screen, but you can easily swap these two out. Moved my key on me. But then it throws these out and they do some explosions and all that. The Kinetic Blast looks like it's going to be a little bit better than Kinetic Bolt, I think. But I wanted to kind of tinker with it, so that's why you see that on there. Vulnerability I'm not using so much. I don't necessarily need it as much. For mobs, maybe, but I've been relying on Sniper's Mark, and I haven't totally needed it for mobs, so I haven't messed with it a whole lot. I've just kind of got it on there to level up. We've also got Precision for more accuracy, Clarity to keep my mana regeneration, and Vitality for life regen. Obviously, I'm short on life. I would like to get a lot more, but I've not spent the time to get it. Quite honestly, when you do this bulldozer amount of damage out in front of you, you do a lot of damage. You can kill this stuff off. It's not been too big of an issue. As I get further into mapping, level tier 3, tier 4, stuff like that, it's getting, I'm doing far less damage, so it's becoming more of an issue. But the other thing I was kind of considering is that Kinetic Blast or Kinetic Bolt might be better, like if I take the GMP out or something like that. It may do better single target damage, like that's 20,000 DPS on the tooltip. That's only 14. So I might have to change this around for single target fights. And I kind of want to see how this goes. I need definitely a lot better gear for defense and better damage for certain. But I was kind of thinking that might be kind of an interesting thing, is to swap these out and see which one I could do more single target damage with. So I'm kind of working on that. As far as the passive tree, I took this node for Fortitude, so you just have 15 fortification, because along the way you get extra damage with fortification, and you're fortified, so you're just there. I wanted to go into Impale, and in fact I did start off with Impale with the dual strike, and then when I switched over to Kinetic Bolt, when I switched over to Kinetic Bolt, I kept some of the Impale stuff, but I didn't really notice that it was doing all that much. So I backed out of that and started going into more critical strikes and stuff like that. And then that's why I took Fortify. That's why I do not have Master of Metal. I wanted to try this, but this is the only thing that does Impales on here. Everything else is something else. So then I had to figure out what I wanted to do with this Ascendancy. Quite honestly, this skill might be better on the Gladiator Ascendancy with the bleeding part, the way I've got this built, but that's a whole other topic. So anyway, I went with Fortitude over here, and then I took First to Strike, Last to Fall, because you get this Intimidate on full life, you gain Adrenaline, all this stuff. It sounded kind of cool. Otherwise, I'm not sure what I would take. Inspirational sounds kind of cool, but it's more for banners and some non-curse auras and stuff like that, which I'm not entirely sure I want to go into that. Conqueror with the chance to taunt and reduce damage taken and all this. This sounds much better. And same thing with Worthy Foe. I think that's where I'm going to take the last two nodes. Unstoppable Hero. Nearby allies count as having fortification equal to yours. This is useless for me. I don't care about it. I could take this with increased evasion and more damage while fortified. We could certainly go that route. But I think I want to go with Conqueror and Worthy Foe. I don't think I want to bother with the Master of Metal. The cool thing is I do have this up out of the campaign and able to be retooled. If I did want to tinker around with Impales and wipe out my passive tree, I can certainly do that. So what I've done on the passive tree side of things is I actually came out through attack speed and armor and evasion, but I've moved over so I could free up some points. But I came out into Art of the Gladiator. I put mana flows to get the mana regen. I still need clarity to fix all that, but came into Art of the Gladiator, Mana Flows, Bravery, and then over here to Master of the Arena. I think that's like a basic package you'd take. I took Dervish for dual wielding for chance to block, so I've got as much chance to block as I can get. We've got Feline Swiftness for more chance to block. We've got all the accuracy in Weathered Hunter. I needed the Wisdom over here. And then coming off to this side, I pick up Cornered Prey because this gives you critical strike multiplier against bleeding enemies and 80% increased critical strike chance against bleeding enemies. So I wanted to pick that. We're going into some projectile damage. I think I'm going to end over here at Long Shot. Picked up Twin Terrors because you get increased attack critical strike chance while dual wielding. I wanted to make sure and pick that up instead of, say, Precise Technique where you never deal critical strikes. I wanted to pick this up where I could do critical strikes, so that's why I went over this way. There's some dual wielding stuff for chance to block for critical strikes, so I wanted to take advantage of that. And then I came up into lethality with projectile attacks at 50% increased critical strike chance, again with the critical strike and critical strike multiplier, and then increased projectile damage per 16 dexterity on the mastery. And I just went ahead and took this entire wheel. Everything on here was increased crit chance and multiplier and all that, so I went ahead and took the whole thing. Over here we have Swagger, which is chance to block attack damage, chance to gain frenzy charges when you block, 1% chance to block spell damage per 5% chance to block attack damage. So that's why I have spell block and attack block. Came over here to ambidexterity and blade barrier because this is all dual wielding, so I stuck with that. I did pick up versatile combatant, which removes minus 10% chance to block attack and spell damage, so you get less chance to block, but plus 2% chance to block spell damage for each 1% overcap chance to block attack damage, which means I have 65% chance to block spell damage and 70% chance to block attack damage. It reduces my attack damage or attack block chance a little bit by 5% or so, somewhere in there, but it increases my spell block from like 15 to 65 or something like that. It went up significantly, so that's why I stuck with that. We've got Golem's Blood for increased max life and regen. We've got Bastion Breaker for increased physical attack damage. In this side of it, we picked up Spirit of War for reduced mana costs and mana reservation efficiency. I started to go to Prepared Response, but there's only one retaliation skill that works with this, and that's Divine Retribution. The other ones need like a melee weapon, and the wand is not a melee weapon, I don't think. It doesn't seem to be that way. So the only retaliation skill that I was able to use, because I don't have a shield either, so the only one I could use is Divine Retribution. But you get retaliation skills have 12% cooldown recovery on the way over here. So my cooldown recovery is less than 2 seconds by going through this. But there's no real reason to take this one again, because this one says 25% chance when you use a retaliation skill for a different retaliation skill to become usable. So I don't think I want to waste the point on it. I mean, the retaliation skill is usable for a little bit longer. It is what it is. I think the cooldown recovery is a little bit more worthwhile. We've got Bloodletting for increased damage and chance to aggravate bleeding and all that stuff, more chance to cause bleeding. Picked up Eagle Eye for all the accuracy you get. Picked up Soul of Steel for all the armor and increased elemental resistances and stuff like that. And then we came over here for As the Mountain to get more block, chance to block attack damage while dual wielding, and +3 maximum chance to block attack damage. And then plus 2% max chance to block attack damage with the mastery. I was over into Wall of Steel, but going over this didn't really give me a whole lot of benefit. Like I'm overcapped as it is on my chance to block, and overcapping too much further did not bring my chance to block spell damage up, and I'm pretty much capped with my chance to block attack. So I backed out of this and moved into some of this stuff over here. So this is the build. It's not necessarily the greatest build in the world for sure. It's more of a proof of concept. One of the things that I learned when I started a witch build earlier. I think it was the occultist build. And one of the things that I learned very early on is that wands do not scale spell damage, meaning this thing has physical damage of 114 to 211. That does not count to your spell by itself. So no matter what kind of wand you put on, it doesn't matter. The increased spell damage that is in the implicit and then the other int and increased the attributes and everything that are on here do apply. So when I was doing that occultist build, I actually started going up into here, and then somebody pointed out that none of this matters to spell damage. When I found this Kinetic Bolt skill and this was doing attack damage, I figured out that this does apply, and I started going into that on the Elementalist build that I was working on. So I kind of got to tinker around with that, and I kind of got to learn how that worked. However, I think this works, this attack skill works much better over on the melee side of things than it did up on the magic side of things. Even though it's a blue gem, it's kind of misleading in some regards. You would think a blue gem would be a spell and it would be good for all the spell-based builds up there. It's probably not bad up here if you can figure out how to make this work. I just wasn't able to. But this feels really good. I kind of want to try this out on a gladiator. I think the gladiator with the bleed stuff would probably be very good. So I may flip-flop this over to the bleed glad, take this tree and put it over there and see how that goes. I don't know that critical strikes and bleeding is the best way to do this. There's probably other ways of dealing with this that would scale the damage much better and maybe repool it or retool this in some other fashion. But this is how I've got this build going. It's kind of fun to play. It's definitely not going to be some award-winning uber killer, you know, it's the bestest build ever. It's definitely not that. But for me, for learning the game and for what I'm trying to do this league, I think this is a very good build. I've learned quite a bit from this, and I've tried this on a lot of different pieces came together. The two different witch builds that I did, the ranger build, and then this one, all kind of piled together to make this. And then I don't remember where I learned the divine retribution, but that I think that was over on one of the Templars that I put together. That actually works really well with this. And on that's a spell, but we've got oh no, we don't. I thought I had the Iron Will. I thought I had that added into this, but apparently I don't. I've got Expert Retaliation, Spell Cascade, and Added Lightning. I think I had the Iron Will, but I ended up swapping it over to Added Lightning because this was actually more damage than the Iron Will was. But at any rate, I thought this was a pretty cool skill. I like the way the skill plays, and I don't know. This could be something good if it was iterated on a little bit. I don't hate this. It might need a different ascendancy. I definitely tried multiple ascendancies, and this one's better than the other ones I tried, but Gladiator might be the best one yet. So anyway, that is what do we got? A champion, Kinetic Bolt, and I might try Kinetic Blast with it and see where that goes. I don't know. Anyway, that's going to do it for this video. We will catch you on the next one. Take care.